This is Frank Islam, Chairman and CEO of our investment group, and your host of Washington Calling, where we interview leading voices from business and politics that impact you, the viewer. Today, we are fortunate to have a distinguished guest, Mr. Valliappa, who is the founder and CEO of Vee Technologies. We thank him for his leadership. He's a difference maker. And thank you very much, Mr. Valliappa, for coming to our show. We appreciated you taking the time to come and talk to us.
Oh, thank you, Frank. Appreciate it.
I know, Mr. Valliappa, you had a very distinguished career. And tell us a little bit about your background and your remarkable journey for our global audience. And this global audience spans all over the United States and North America and other part of the world. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi, Frank. Thanks for having me here. I'm a fourth-generation entrepreneur. I was fortunate to be born in the family that I'm born in. My great-grandfather was started off as a journalist. Went to do a story on a tea garden worker who was shot in her leg. Her only fault was saying that she was sick and couldn't work. And long story short, very similar to what Gandhi did in South Africa. My great-grandfather happened to do that in Sri Lanka and became kind of involved in the Indian freedom movement and things like that. So his family said that he's getting too radical and things like that, and then brought him back to India from Sri Lanka. He started his textile journey, became a textile entrepreneur. And it was in his house, actually, Gandhi stopped wearing a shirt and never to wear it again in the lion cloth incident in Madurai. And then along the way, he happened to get very involved in Indian educational movement. So that's how we're in education as well for the past over 60 years. My grandfather continued that journey and then went on to add more to the education institution, opened an engineering institute, things like that, and then also branched into coffee plantations, and which I was trained by my grandfather to run. And my father continued that. Every generation tends to take their own path. So my father brought in IT to India when he got in a company called Texas Instruments in 1982. And the U.S. ambassador had come in and opened the Texas Instruments facility. So in 96, I was in textiles and coffee and things like that. In 96, I said I can put two and two together and went to TI, and I said, I want to start my own entrepreneurial journey. So can you help me start that? Instead of taking all the furniture, fittings outside and then selling it for scrap value, I'll do you a good deal. You can name your price and we can start. That's how I succeeded in getting Valliappa Software Technology Park up and running, and brought in companies like Cisco, Verifone, and Oracle into India. That's the first days of these companies were in our office. Because we had Texas Instruments space and things like that. And in 99, 2000, I got into the outsourcing side, where Cigna
and you founded Vee Technologies, right?
Exactly.
You founded a Vee Technology, which is a global services company, which is has 50,000 employees and a close to $21 billion revenue, correct?
Yeah. So we have about 5,000 staff directly, and then we impact a lot.
That's a wonderful
in terms of training and things. Yeah.
You mentioned, Mr. Valliappa, about in the IT industry, which is obviously a very important part of the India GDP growth. What kind of a challenge is the Indian IT industry changing it, and what do they overcome those challenges?
Like you rightly said, the IT and the world is changing like it's never before. So especially now in terms of automation coming in, RPA, robotic process automation, AI, ML, and things like that. So, we are in it on two spectrums. So one is having an engineering education, actually kind of getting our students ready into the job market, and then the other side with Vee Technologies in terms of trying to sell to the global audience. So one of the things that, if you noticed, Indian IT prowess got known to the world in Y2K. That's when they started believing in Indian IT, and then the .com had a lot of bandwidth, and that's how we were able to merge one and two together, and then
Wow.
produce IT for the world. And so that you see something like that happening today. So I mean, you have governments around the world trying to put borders and put visa restrictions for people coming into certain countries and starting to work. But now the very IoT and Industry 4.0 is integrating the world like never before. So you can sit in say Bangalore and operate a machine across the world, anywhere in the world, and that
Right.
happens. That's because of IoT and Industry 4.0 and machines talking to each other. So,
Well, one of the things that I want to talk to you, which was fascinating to me, that your Valliappa Family Trust and how are you contributing to higher education's employment in India. As I understand, you firmly believe in the power of the purposeful philanthropy, and you subscribe to the notion President Kennedy once said, to whom much is given, much is expected. I'm also philanthropic myself, and I have contributed millions of dollars, whatever I can afford, not only in the United States, but India as well. So my question to you is, you are giving a voice to the people who are voiceless and vulnerable. Tell us a little bit about that. And that's a wonderful thing to do what you're doing, and you are making a difference.
sure. Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, we've been involved in education, like I said, for the past over 60 years. So we're celebrating our Diamond Jubilee this year, and it was basically to help India move through those initial years as a nation, because we didn't have higher education institutions like 60 years ago, because the British had orchestrated Indian education in a great way, where you had good education, like a guy like me could speak in English to you studying in India. But the higher education was very, very regulated. So they wanted to for the Indians to go learn the English way of life, kind of, and come in. So that's when we started that. But fast forward to the 2000 and the years right now, skill development is becoming the foray, because I mean, there are a lot of young Indians. Every 1.2 seconds, that means now to now, one job needs to get created in India.
Correct.
So that's the
Correct.
amount of skill. So every month, 1 million people are coming into the job market. And there are 200 million people who are below the poverty line. The world poverty line is $1.80 a day, not per hour, per day. The India defines poverty level as $1.20 a day. And then below that, according to the Indian government, there are 200 million people. So what we said is, my endeavor was to take 1 million people out of poverty in a 10-year period. So that's how I set up Sona Yukti, where we set up a chain of training institutes across India, wherever people are available and below the poverty line. That's where you'll see us centers. You wouldn't see them much in the cities or something, but in rural areas, in interior India, you will find our centers, training them on different skill sets. So we are a partner with the National Skill Development Corporation, which is NSDC. It's all very
Right.
regulated and very mandated in terms of how you operate. And then there is Sector Skill Council for each industry. There's a Sector Skill Council. So like for telecom and ITES, for example, or for textiles and apparel or agriculture. So we align ourselves with these, get affiliated with these Sector Skill Council through a qualification process. And then after that, they give us numbers of people to train. So we train them and then place them in companies. So that's one
Well,
thing we do. And the other, yeah.
tell us a little bit about
And
the
then,
hire me effort that which is so fascinating, and that will lead to the conversation that we're going to have. But the fact of the matter is, you're giving a hope and help and heart to those who are voiceless, to those who are socially economically disadvantaged, to those who are underprivileged. That's something. If they succeed, which is about 400 million people in India, all of us succeed, India succeed, and the world succeed. They can have a capacity and capability to change the landscape of not just India, but of the world.
sure, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. HireMe,
Yes.
what had happened was that our institutions are not in a Tier 1 city, like in the U.S. standards with say Washington or Seattle or some of the other towns, but we are in a smaller town, like say Scranton, Pennsylvania, or something like that. So it's
Oh,
about an hour or
oh,
two away from New York
yeah, I know
City,
where it is.
but
I have been there.
okay,
Vice President Biden was
okay.
born there, and my friend Hillary Clinton is not too far from there. She was born also there. So I love Scranton.
Okay. Yeah, no, what I'm saying is like, so we are, our institutions are in a place like that. So uh, even though we are a Tier 1 institution, getting placements for our students, were some of them are brilliant, was difficult. Whereas an average school in say Bangalore or Chennai or Delhi or some of these places can get placed very fast. So that's when I came up with the idea of HireMe. So HireMe is like it's a job recruitment platform. So a student goes in, just takes their mobile phone. $100 cell phone is enough. They can take the cell phone and put in their details, record a 1 minute video snippets, 20-second clips, 3 20-second clips, and then they take an assessment for 100 minutes, which is basically
Wow.
aptitude and domain, and they put it in, and the industry comes in and searches for certain skill sets in the seven areas. They can specify, are they looking for a person with good verbal aptitude or good logical aptitude and things like that, and then the shortlisted candidates would show up. So right now, today, we have close to about 500,000 students who are registered with us. And so you wouldn't get all the 500,000, but only students above the criteria you're looking for would show up. And then you can immediately look at the videos, see them. If you like them, you can kind of swipe right or you swipe left, and then you can shortlist them for a further interview, and then we basically match make for jobs. So.
Well, it's a wonderful opportunity. So you are preparing the youth for the 21st century job, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So our endeavor for HireMe is to enable 3 million jobs by 2025. That's the vision
And
for
you will
HireMe.
also provide the apprenticeship and also the assistance and the mentoring for these students because they are the hope of tomorrow.
Yeah. So what we do is we tie up with the industry, and then the industry looks for mentoring, looks for internship, apprentice, or they get placed directly. And then we all have a separate HireMe skills thing, which is going to be launched in the month of March, where the skills that are deficient in we'll circle back with them and say these are the skills that you're weak at, and this is what you need to plug in order to get a job. So it becomes aspirational as well, saying that if you want to benchmark that you want to get a job in this industry, then we say, okay, what are the skill sets needed and where you need to be and where are you? And then we match that with that gap of HireMe skills. And that's HireMe Gold, which is basically gives them the golden edge in terms of polishing them to that level.
So as you know, the India has a huge workforce, close to about 470 million people. And I wrote a column in Economic Times. I don't know if you had a chance to see my columns that I wrote about a month ago, what India needs to do to create jobs for the 21st century. My question to you is, how do you build the workforce so they can create more jobs and economy? Because they had a one vacancy somewhere in UP, which was for a peon, which is a very low-level job. There were millions of applicants. So, but we need to create more jobs every day, as you said, every minute you said, every second you say. So that's the biggest challenge that the government has.
Yeah, it is a challenge, but what we're trying to see is we are trying to build people with better skill sets for the industry. So what's happened is today, the best president, you can ask any Indian anywhere in the world who's been the best president that we've had so far, and they would undoubtedly say Abdul Kalam. And Abdul
And
Kalam came in from, he studied in St. Joseph's, Tiruchi. I think you're saying something, Frank? Yeah.
no, I'm not
So
saying
he studied
anything.
in St. Okay.
Yeah,
I
go
said,
ahead.
I mean, he
Go ahead.
studied in St. Joseph, Tiruchi, and he didn't come from an IIT or an IIM or any of those kind of institutions.
Correct.
So a normal company in India would not have recruited him. So if you see India's most successful startup is the Indian Space Research Organization, the ISRO. So on one satellite launch, we launched 84 satellites on one rocket launch, and but 94% of Indian Space Research Organization are non-IITs. That means they come in from an average institution and then they become outstanding. So what we are trying to do is to create this and find the pool of people to get there. There is a startup system which is coming up in India. There's micro entrepreneurship which is coming in. Prime Minister Modi calls it pakoda economics, where he wants to generate more smaller people trying to come in and then into the workforce. But what's going to happen is, if you see the job shift, if you see the demographic shift in the world, if you see America is aging fast, right? You have 14 million baby boomers who are going to go out of the market from an age.
So we need the new immigrant, because they will bring the broad-based benefits to our economy. As a matter of fact, 0.5% of GDP is dependent on the immigrants coming to our nation. As President Kennedy once said, immigration infused this nation and fought for us as a new frontier, thereby keeping the hope alive and well. And I'm a very fond of President Kennedy, because I am on the board of the Harvard University and as well as JFK Library. So as I close the conversation, I want to have you to tell us 1 minute what the India diaspora can do to help India to achieve its fullest potential.
Yeah, I think the Indian diaspora has done phenomenally well around the world. I mean, it's fascinating to go see people like you and who've been successful and are doing outstanding. What it needs in India right now, like we had this conversation about, is to come back and maybe give back to your roots. And in terms of developing, and then if I were to pick an area which I know, which is skill development, it takes very little to set up a skill development center. Literally, not even $100,000. Sometimes even $75,000 or $50,000 can set up a skill development center. That center can have your name or if needed or something like that. And the people can actually pay you back in 3 years when you set this up, because it's self-sustaining once you set it up. So we need centers around India, maybe the homes that they came from, like, villages or whatever areas that they came from or something like that. And then set it up. So once you set up a $50,000 or $75,000 investment, that can set up a school which can in turn churn out 500 to 1,000 students a year. And that's in perpetuity, because the government actually supports skill development for the ongoing. But in terms of investment, it is a little more expensive. So that might give
thank you very much.
That might give a yeah, sure.
Thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for all you do. Thank you very much for being a great philanthropist, and thank you for promoting the voices for those people who are voiceless. And thank you very much for all you do. This is Frank Islam wishing you a great week, and thank you for watching.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you.